Okay, so then we should be able to go. Uh-oh, I don't see you as, oh, there, no, wait, I don't see you as an attendee.
Oh, let me in, you might find me there.
Oh, yeah, there you are. Sorry, it took a second. Okay, so now I'm going to promote to panelist. I did, I said. Okay, we'll be rejoining as a panelist. Okay, so now you should be able to share your screen.
So you should be able to see that, and if I go over to Llama, you should be able to see a Llama.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
everyone sees that. Hi, can y'all hear me online and off? What?
Yeah, I don't think I can't hear you, Mike.
You can hear my mic.
Oh, you're gonna pace maybe.
Oh, okay, yeah, give me something I can hold because I talk to people, not just that. Hello, can you hear me now? All right, great. All right, but this is gonna be, I hope I can do this one with just this hand. PowerPoint is just to keep me on point. So hi, I'm Debbie Ginsberg. I am the Faculty Services Manager at Harvard Law School. I love to play with technologies, particularly ones I don't quite understand yet, and then tell people about it in ways that they'll tell me more about the technology so I can learn more. I'm going to talk about, if I have time, 4 technologies today. I originally had set this up as a 15-minute show and tell, thinking there was going to be other people, but it's just me. So I'm going to talk about how to build your own AI. This is going to be a chat AI, and I'm running it on this computer. And I'll tell you a little bit about what kind of computers work and what might not be as successful. I'm going to do a not AI with Notero, which is a way to combine Zotero with the Notion planning and project app, and I really like that. I'm going to talk about how to create sort of your own RAG with Google's NotebookLM. And who here has access to the Teams or Enterprise version of ChatGPT? So some of you do, but if you don't, you may not have seen the full O3 model. And I find it can do some things that are really interesting compared to some of the older models. So I might get a chance to show you a little bit about that as well. So I have been thinking to myself, there has to be a way I can set up my own AI, but I was like, I don't know, it might be really hard. But then I randomly came across a YouTube video of a fairly obnoxious guy, but it's a useful YouTube video that showed me all I had to do was do 3 things. And I will show you those 3 things and explain how they, at least how I understand they work, but my understanding is fairly narrow. And many of the things I'm going to be talking about generally have more powerful uses than the ones I'm going to be talking about today. So you might have seen them in another context, or you might say like, wait, this can do that and another thing. So the first thing I use is something called Ollama. You can see it sitting up here with everything here. It runs in the background. And you can see it here on my Chrome. And it's a way to get up and running with large language models. Fairly simple. All I had to do to use this was install it. And it's just a download, follow the download things and install, and it appears up here running in the background. You can see I don't have an Ollama thing down here. There's no llamas down here. But I can access it using the terminal. So, which is tiny, but I don't really have a choice there. Maybe there's a view to make it larger. Who knows? But I can run these things in the terminal. So Ollama comes with a bunch of, oh man, you're not my friend. This whole thing with Zoom getting in the way. Control tab, thanks. Ollama has a bunch of languages. I can run DeepSeek or Gemma or all different versions of Llama. And so if I have a particular one I want to run, I can click this and it copies that particular command and I can paste it into my terminal. And if I didn't already have this particular LLM in my on my computer already, it would download it, but I think I have this running already. And now I have an LLM that I can just tell it to do something. So tell a joke. And it says, why don't eggs tell jokes? Because they crack each other up. That is generally the quality I'm seeing. There we go. So I can run this whole LLM right here in the terminal if I want to, but I want to actually have a more sophisticated UI for this. So I will say bye to this. So it takes me back to my terminal. And this is sort of the most sophisticated that I have to get is copy and paste things into a terminal program. Terminal for Mac. Windows has its own command lines where you can run similar things. And that's all I have to do. I don't have to do anything fancy here. At which point, I muted for a reason, thanks. I needed something else. And what the little video of the guy who's now gone said is to use Docker. And Albert mentioned Docker in his last presentation because as a developer, Docker can help you run safely, different kinds of tests that you might want to put on a server or something. For me, Docker's just going to let me run Open Web UI for some reason. So, well, that's my understanding. So download Docker, similar to downloading Ollama. I download it, but this time it is a program, and it runs here. But what I'm going to need next is I need something called a container, and that's sort of like a little, kind of like a little app to run Open Web UI itself. So Open Web UI is a product that is in GitHub. And you're like, oh gosh, I have to install a GitHub thing? That's hard. But again, it's just copy and paste. So I'm going to do a quick start with Docker. Ollama's on my computer. Use this command. Copy. Go back to my terminal, my command line. Paste. Run. It's done. Now when I go to Docker, I have Control Tab has better things to do than work. Go away. I have a port. I have a little website I can go to just by clicking this little underlined bit. And I set mine up so I have to sign in. And voila, I have an entire website that I can use to run my, all kinds of models locally. So that's fun. So 3 steps to get set up, but you might be thinking, okay, what models can run on what kind of computer? And Ollama helps you with this. It presents a bunch of models that it can run. And it then tells you what their parameters are and what their size is. The smaller the size, the fewer resources you need to run. So this computer is my computer. Harvard did not give it to me, it's mine. It's a MacBook Pro running a M4 chip Pro with 48 gigabytes of memory. And you might think, God, that can just run anything. It cannot. So I can run little things like this little Gemma, no problem. I can run Gemma 3 a little slow, so that's 17 gigabytes, and it's at this sort of 27B, which probably has a meaning to someone. I'm just using it to track like the smaller numbers I can run. The larger numbers get harder. So 32, maybe not. Definitely, I tried to run Llama 4. That was a disaster. Did not work. Just not happening here. 70 is too big, but I can run the smaller ones. So, it's generally, to a certain extent, it's like, okay, if I've got like 32 gigabytes, I might be able to run up to 33B, but it's going to be really slow. I've tried running some of these on a very basic, an older PC. They didn't run very well. So probably newer hardware and as much memory as you can get. But the smaller ones will still run, like this 1B should run on 16 gigs, should run okay. Ollama says, back to my PowerPoint, you are always in my way. 18 gigs of RAM for 7B, I don't know, 16 for 13B, 32 for 33. That's still, to me, that seems a little optimistic, but we'll see. So this is how we can get started. What can it do? And there's a lot of things I like about this. One, once I install a bunch of different models, I can pick what model I want to run. And I can try it on a different bunch, try each model and see what it can do. So I had each model tell me a joke. Quinn, I don't know what it's thinking. It's like, why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was the only one who didn't wear a hat. Maybe there's a language thing. I don't know. And others are like, what do you call a fake noodle? Wait for it. An impasta. And so I thought they might get more sophisticated as the models got bigger. They did not. And then Gemma, once again, was like, not Gemma, Quinn was again a little strange. So even a larger version of Quinn. Why did the banana go to the doctor? Because it wasn't peeling? I think maybe it was meant to say it wasn't peeling well. I don't know. Some of these are better than others. So then I tried it with something more sophisticated. What is a tort? And again, this tiny version of Quinn gave me a very tiny answer. A small version of Llama gave me a more sophisticated answer. And the DeepSeeks and the Gemmas gave me a more detailed answer. So, okay, I'm starting to get the idea of like, what are the limits of small versus larger LLMs? Which, is a good way to start playing with it and get an idea of what different LLMs produce different results. And this is, if I'm just used to ChatGPT and just used to, maybe Google Gemini, this gives me a chance to see what other kinds of how other kinds of LLMs handle different things. But wait, there's more. Over here are the controls. And I can make all kinds of adjustments in the controls. I'm still learning what all these adjustments do. But again, starting to figure out, this kind of exercise helps me figure out how the back end of LLMs work. So I can even things like change the temperature, which, tells me, is the model going to be creative or not creative? I can make that choice on the fly, along with all of these things besides, and then run things to see how they work. That's pretty good. There's also a lot of settings hiding over here. And some are like web UI settings, and that's fine. Search, and I've got, interface settings, can turn a lot of things on or off. But the admin settings also give me a lot of control as well, including lots of control over the models that I'm using. So you can see I've hidden a model. I can turn things on or off in the model, like say, you can do these kinds of capabilities, you cannot have those kind of capabilities. I can remove models, I can add models. So this gives me more control over the whole system for me to do a lot of different comparisons. So this is one way to do it. And I know other people prefer other ways. This is just the first way I learned it, and I like it because I like this web interface. There are some other ways that people have run their own LLMs. This is called it's called GPT for All. And I can pick up models of various kinds. So I've added some models here. And I can go to a chat and new chat. You go there. Yeah. All right, that let me type in.
Below the model.
Oh, I thought I loaded it. Okay. La 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 la. Here, this was loaded before. Tell me a fun thing to do in Atlanta. Tell me a fun thing to do in Atlanta, and it will come up with something to do. So eventually, it's thinking.
Other than just practicing him, it's wrong. What about a
There we go. Pick up free trinkets somewhere at the Juneteenth Day confetti trail. That's not bad. Okay. So again, what?
Where's there a Lake Martin in downtown Atlanta?
See, I don't know. It sounds great to me. Oh dear, did it make something up? It probably did. And again, this gives me an idea of where is this getting its information from, and what can I do with it? Now, just before I got started, David showed me how to use developer mode, which I'm still learning about as a way to, if I wanted to start doing more sophisticated things with it, with like APIs and stuff, but I'm still getting to that point. But this LM Studio, a lot of people like because it gets, can let you do some more technical things that you might not be able to do in the other two programs that I showed you. So we've seen now different ways of creating your own AI on your own laptop. You can download those, you can just download a Llama, use it in the terminal or command line. You can download Llama, Docker, and open web UI, use it in your browser. You could try ChatGPT 4, you can try LM Studio. There are others besides, but these might be some ways to get started if you haven't been doing this. If you're not been on the big technical side and doing your own programming in AIs yet, this can help you get started to see how some of this stuff works. Back to my little PowerPoint. So, all right, talked about the size and date already. Updating these things is relatively simple. If a Llama needs to update, it will tell you when you look at it, in the browser, in the toolbar, that it needs to update. Docker will tell you if it needs to within the app itself. OpenUI, this is where I have to get a little sophisticated. So if you remember, I copied and pasted a command. In the command, there's the word run. I have to replace it with the word pull, because that will pull the latest version, and then copy and paste the run command again, which will then run it. So that's how you update that. So Docker, OpenWebUI, how to update. So why would we want to use local UI? One, if you don't have internet, this still runs. It might make something up, but it will still run. Because it has no internet, if you want more privacy, this can allow you to do that. If you want more control, and I showed you all these different ways you can control from the 3 different options, you can do that. You can do more customization. If you have latency issues between servers, you can avoid that. If you need to avoid a cost, the versions I showed you were free. And so you can access them without having to pay like you might have to pay for the other models. That's my first part. But I know some of you are using OpenWebUI or OpenUI or local UI in other ways. Does anyone want to share some of the things they might be doing? While I have a coughing fit? Anyone ready to go test this right now? Oh, yes.
One thing that I've been doing is using a monster that is pretty good at doing speech to text.
So using Whisper to do speech to text, that can be pretty powerful as well.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at that one. How does that work?
I run it off the command line, and I've been playing around with trying to get NotebookLM, its conversational podcast, the coherent way for law, which is very difficult. But I was getting a good structure of conversation out of it, and a lot of it was good. So I wanted to convert it into a script, and Whisper will do it. It'll output text. It'll output a couple of what they call it. It's formatting for doing
Right.
closed captioning.
Okay.
And so you get some really good output for it, and its accuracy was really good.
Okay. So Whisper as a way to do some captioning and to try to prove on some of the capabilities of NotebookLM and come up with good scripts. Excellent. I'll have to check that one out. Anyone else? Yep.
We use WebUI on Amazon instance, so we can expose it out to the world, and have done some simulations for students.
Okay.
So one of our negotiation classes, they basically use it to create a sort of custom interactive bot that then will go through a negotiation exercise.
All right. So OpenWebUI for simulations and negotiation exercises.
Yes, so basically, same thing with AI and stuff that you
Mhm.
make your own that is not.
So
You have to have the pro account.
Oh, pro account of which?
So if you make a custom GPT with OpenAI, your students have to have
Oh, right.
a pro account and be able to access it.
Got it.
They can access the free they can do like 10 questions to a free account, but so we wanted a way that students didn't have to like buy a thing.
So yeah, so again, this keeps the costs down by using things that are free and that you can control yourself and share. Yeah, that's right. You paid for the Amazon. But okay, so you had to pay for the Amazon's part, but not the server part. Oh, and the API access? Okay. So yeah, so oh great. That's a way to avoid student cost. Nice. All right. Couple other things. Why not use it? You can see it's slow. I have a really good computer here, but even here, it's not fast. That's why I'm not doing a lot of live demos with even the higher ones, but the more bigger ones, because it won't work. There is some effort to set it up. So, I've just got this out of the box, but if I really want things working, I'm going to have to do more configuration, which I'm still learning how to do. And, it may have some limited functionality depending on what you want to do with it. But of course, you may find something like Whisper that adds to the functionality and helps you, do other things with it. I showed you the other options. So now there is going to be Notero. Does anyone use Notero? So what do you use Notero for? For a class project? Does anyone here use Zotero? How about Notion? So Notion. So Zotero is a great way to store a lot of information about, or a lot of different resources for any kind of research project. So here is the things I hopefully will eventually read about AI someday. Because there is Zotero, it's free. Through my university, I have unlimited storage, though some people will use local storage or cloud storage they have access to gain more storage for things like articles. And there is an extension in Chrome that I can just click, save to Zotero, save to Zotero, save to Zotero. I use that all the time. However, for me personally, I don't find this interface useful when I'm doing research projects. I find it a little messy. I know there are ways I can change it, but I don't want to be messing with that. I also sometimes use Notion for managing managing different projects. Here I are in Notion. I'm going to just go over here to home. So I might be using this for managing certain kinds of research projects, tracking where I am, getting notes, doing timelines and things like that. And I thought to myself, what if I can combine the two? And it turns out I can combine the two and do things that let me get a lot of information from Zotero over here into Notion so I can start making notes and tracking things in ways that I want to that make sense to me. Now, I don't know if any of you read my blog article about this a few months ago in the LitSys blog, which explained how it had to be done in a way that was similarly complicated to how we set up local LLMs. And it'd been like that for a while, which means between the time that I proposed this session and today, it has changed, but for the better. This is also a GitHub thing. So Liz over here, and again, you might think, oh no, GitHub, too difficult to install. No, you install a plugin in Zotero. You connect it to your Notion database. You choose your connections or your collections, and there you go, you're set. So if you're not familiar, over here in Zotero, one of the options you have is to install plugins. So if you downloaded this plugin and went over here to the plugins tool, you can go to the settings and install a plugin from a file. So you would download the tool, install it from the file, and you would have a nice little plugin called Notero. And you can see I've got some other plugins here to help me make Zotero even better. Once it's installed, it's here as a tool, and I just set my Notero preferences. And if I hit disconnect, it will make a big mess that I don't want to deal with here right now. But if it said connect, it would take me to a web page that would say connect it to Notion. I would just give it permissions to connect to Notion. And then I would say what page I want it connected to. Here I've got it connected to Notero basic test. I can pick, I've got lots of these, which one of my collections I want it to add by hitting return. So here I've added AI ethics rules by hitting return, and it will sync over here to Notion. And now I have a sort of basic template, basic spreadsheet of what I want to read, and I can add other things to it. So I can add anything from information about the publisher or an AI, for some reason they've got an AI summary that doesn't work very well, or any other information I want to add to this, I can add and make keep track of what I am reading and keep track of my research in a more sophisticated way. I wanted something a little more advanced, and fortunately, our good friends here at Notero offer something. So if I scroll down here, did I miss it? Find advanced, there we go. There's the basic example we just saw, and there's an advanced example. And if I wanted to use it, I would click advanced example and then click duplicate, and it would add this particular template to my Notion. And if you remember back here in Zotero, where I could choose from different templates in my Notion preferences, one of them is an advanced template. And here in my advanced template, I've got different views I can see things. So I've got bibliographic information, so I can get a general idea of what I want to be researching. I have my reading status of where I am in my research process. I have my lit review, and here, this is what I was using to track things for, why is that like that? We're not coming back here. I can track, this is how I was tracking some information that I wanted to use in the benchmarking panel, what worked, what didn't work, recommendations. And that helped. So what I was using is I was reading and I'm making notes and then adding my notes here. So I knew what I wanted to say about some of the different benchmarking studies when we were talking in that first panel. I've used this to write a chapter. I've used this to write other kinds of research projects. And this really helped me visualize where I was in the process while giving me the ability to add things that I wanted, what kind of notes I wanted to take, what kind of questions I had, and how the different resources I had responded to those particular questions that I was working on. So no AI is involved here. I could use the AI summaries. I don't have to. But I think that's an extra thing that I pay for Notion. Everything else is free and just lets me, once I got it set up, it was ready to go, and I was able to start doing my research. Any questions about this or anything else that people used it for? And they're saying, wait, there's another thing you should know about this. Yeah.
Management sort of approach. I think the project I'm working on with some archiving materials opinion, and I'm gonna have to come up with some kind of like a workflow for the student workers. So how might this help me with that?
That's a big question. If I was doing that, I would go on the workflow and then I'd see is this the kind of thing that would solve that workflow problem? Do I need a place, because you can share these. Do I need a place where we have a more configurable, customizable page for the students to work in other than Zotero itself, where I need them to track different kinds of things? Or do I need some other solution? Because I don't know the particulars of what you're trying to accomplish. So you need to ask more, again, like any other project thing, you need to ask more questions. And once you sort of got an idea of what your workflow is, you can see, is this kind of tool something appropriate, and is this the best tool for that? Like if you're already using Zotero for something and then you need another layer on top of it that's more customizable, this could be the right tool. If that's not what you need, look for something else. Okay? All right, Notero. One of my other favorite tools, which you probably already know, but I just love this so much. NotebookLM. Who here is a NotebookLM user? I love NotebookLM so much. I try not to like fall in love with all these AI things. There's huge problems, huge ethical issues with them. But what NotebookLM lets me do is it lets me create a space where I upload different articles, other materials, and then I can ask questions of it. So again, going back to the research projects that I've been working on, I have to do my own research, right? I have to read the articles, I have to assess them, I do my own analysis, and then I'll be like, one of these articles said something about this, but I don't remember which article that was. This is what answers that question. It can also do other kinds of analysis and assessments that might help me think about things in a different way. So here again, playing with hallucinations, asked it what a hallucination was. I uploaded various things. You can upload PDFs, you can upload websites. I can decide what's being used and what's not. Depends on your account. I'll get to that in a second. So I don't remember the exact numbers. I will get as close as I can. You can, I've asked it particular questions. What's a hallucination? Are these particular things, are these LLMs and are these tools in Lexis and Westlaw good for legal research? The answer is no. And I've asked other things besides. You can create a little, because you were mentioning this before, a little podcast. It's its own thing. You don't get a lot of control of how it creates it or what the language is. You said one of your problems was that you thought the language was not correct for like doing a legal podcast. There's a male voice and a female voice. I had a problem with the male voice tends to be authoritative and the female voice tends to ask a lot of questions. I didn't like that. So I just find it sort of like a fun thing, but I'm not finding it as useful as being able to ask questions of my resources to check me. Like, those of us who are librarians will sometimes get like, find me a resource that, says this particular conclusion. But if I already have my resources and I know the conclusion's in there somewhere, I can find it myself using NotebookLM. And also very recently, I can now share this publicly if I wanted to with anybody who wanted to see it. That's new as of a couple days ago. So I can share it linked and I can share it publicly. I have the pro version, which lets me do a couple extra things. The only reason I have the pro version is I have a very old Gmail account. It's older than any of my children who are late teens. And there's a lot there that I should clean out. I have not cleaned it out. So I already was paying and they gave me the pro account. Pro account does give you more. I think it's like 25 without pro, 50 with pro, and now they're going to introduce a max. Who knows what that's going to cost or what that is? That's not up here yet. The other thing I saw, but I can't verify as much as I'd like, is if you are using the free account, this stuff goes to the training data, or you might be able to turn it off where, who knows. The pro account is not supposed to share the training data, but I really can't verify that as clearly as I would like. I've seen it mentioned in one places, but there are other places I would think would mention it that don't. So tend to be pretty cautious about what I put in here because I don't want to share something that doesn't belong. But as far as, I have a bunch of resources, I need to know something about it. This is the most powerful tool I've seen yet for that. Does anyone else have anything they want to add about NotebookLM or a tool they use that's similar or one they developed themselves? I'm going to do, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to do you, you, and you.
Set up something like this in your web UI.
All right, web UI.
You already have that, and that would run locally.
Yep.
So that you wouldn't have a question about it or sharing.
Yeah, I've got to figure that out. I know there's a way to do it, and I should have it figured out probably in a week or two. Elmer.
If your school's a Gmail school,
Mm.
you got Google under the education license, you probably have access to it. And again,
Gmail schools.
not verifiable, but they say they don't use any of the data from the educational licensees, for the training, so everything.
All right.
Confidential.
So if your school still has Google, which now, of course, people have to pay a lot of money for, which they didn't have to do before. Yes, they're not supposed to share the data. We hope. John.
It's not showing right now because you've got a conversation loaded there right now. Which I don't know. if
Oh, okay.
I can Get rid of.
Yeah, there is. I can just delete it. Bye.
Customize. Have you played around with that? And that box there,
I don't, all I see is, oh, yeah, so you can do things to try. And I can make it shorter or longer. So I haven't played with this as much.
that box, you can put in a series of commands.
Oh, nice.
Always make it commands.
Okay, you must.
So I was trying to be coherent with like a chapter of a book. And I had to start out saying, only present material that's in the chapter, nothing outside of the source material.
Okay.
Only present material in the order in which it is presented in the source material. And I had about a stack that big of little commands I put in there, and it obeyed them.
Oh, that's nice. So, so what John is saying,
Actions and stuff are a different thing altogether, but that's a very effective way to move it.
so what John is saying, because I'm not sure the people online can hear, is that you can actually, in things to try, give it commands. You know, only address things in the sources, only address things in this particular order. As long as it's a command and it's fairly clear, from what you're saying, John, it sounds like you can make a much more tight and relevant podcast. I could tell the VML voice to be more assertive. Okay.
I'm doing taking a podcast on introduction to the law of homicide. And it started, at one point, they started laughing about, well, involuntary manslaughter,
They're laughing about involuntary manslaughter. No.
which is uncool, right? So I actually put in a command, no laughing, no jokes, and it stopped laughing
Okay.
and making jokes. The one other thing is the add note feature.
Add notes.
The podcast feature also tends to obey that,
Okay.
but if you're making a briefing doc, like you want to do a summary of something like a chapter of a book, or do a case summary,
Okay.
in those those notes, you can create as many as you want, and it adds that to what it considers the source documents. And you can tell it to, like, doing a case summary, do it to issue rule,
Okay.
tell it to do IRAC.
So I didn't know these side notes were as useful. So when I'm doing this, anytime I ask it a question, I can save it to a note, which is what you saw me doing over on this side. But you're saying that if I add a note that is not based on any of the AI summaries, I can provide it more information about what I'm expecting from things like when it does a briefing or when I'm working on things.
And what you expect the output
Okay.
to be, the way you want it, the information, and it will tend to obey it.
Tend to obey it. Okay. It's more powerful than I thought. Anything else about NotebookLM? This side of the room? Yep.
Well, you probably already used it for this purposes, but so when I do practical research, I upload the law review articles that I believe to be relevant for questions, but I double check by uploading them to NotebookLM and then ask the NotebookLM to examine the PDF files and see if they're truly relevant. And the thing I like about NotebookLM is it does point out to particular passages, sentences, or paragraphs within that article that shows that shows why the NotebookLM thinks the article is relevant.
So what you're doing, and I forgot to mention, one of the great things about NotebookLM is it tells you this is where did I get this information? Right here. You can click and verify it yourself. So what you're using it for is when you've been asked to do a research project, you might upload some of the documents into NotebookLM and say, do these documents, do these articles answer the question that I've been asked? And be able to refer directly to the point in the document where that comes from. So even if the AI is incorrect and does one of those things where, it says, the article says that, but the article is just quoting somebody, you can check and verify that yourself. Excellent. All right. So creating your own eye, Notero, and NotebookLM were the three main ones I wanted to talk about, but there's one more. So I think I asked you guys at the beginning, who here has access to the enterprise version or the team version? A few people did raise your hand. Those of us who have access to that version, one, none of the training data gets shared. So Harvard has like a security rating system, and it said this is secure up to like rating system 3, which is anything I need to worry about. So Harvard has already looked at it. Their security experts have looked at it and says, this is secure. You can use this for your work. The other thing is it comes with slightly different models than you would get from the free, the $20 or the $200 version of ChatGPT. Keep in mind, as far as I know, none of those say that they don't share the data. As far as I know, they do. So, I can get things like O4 Mini, I can get the 4.5 research, and I know you can get O3 Mini and O3 Mini, I think there's a light model, but I can get the full version of O3, and that's a reasoning model, and it's really sophisticated. However, it's really slow, so I can't live demo it. One of the things I keep telling me I'll use it for, and I can't show you because that is proprietary data, is anyone here use SpringShare for their ticket system? Got a couple SpringShare users. So you probably know that you can only, if you want to look at the questions and the answers, the whole back and forth that takes place in our ticket system, you have to download it as a JSON file. And I can now upload the JSON file here into the O3 model and say, these kinds of tickets, these are 1Ls asking us about the open memo. Tell me what kinds of questions they're asking so that when we're doing training and we're getting ready for next year, we know what those questions were. And of course, we have a pretty good idea already, but this helps, like, did we miss anything? Is there nuance we didn't understand? It can pull that kind of information. This is what I've wanted these GPTs to do the whole time, is to tell me, give me substantive answers to particular questions I have about the kinds of things that students and faculty are asking. So the ones I can show you, this is me running ChatGPT on some data that came from Reddit. And I'm familiar with 2 of these and not with others. And I started like, okay, give me some just data of like, what kind of file is this? And it's like, oh, this is Reddit stuff, and it's got certain kinds of information in it. I said, there's no dates on this particular data set. So what do you think the data set is? When does it come from? They said, we think it's around April 2023. And here's why. Do you see any themes in 2X chromosomes, which I'm aware of because I follow that Reddit. I'm like, oh yeah, there's stuff about reproductive talk and sexism and advice. I'm like, okay, yeah, these are the things I expect to be there. And then I say, okay, for the 4 data sets, tell me what you think the gender distribution is. And it made a pretty good guess. I don't know what to expect from TrueEdit, but I do know to expect from the other 3. And it seems to go within the parameters of what I would expect. So I can start to use things like the O3 reasoning engine to ask questions that I normally can't ask of a data set. And again, this is what I'm interested in. I also did this with my book set. So here's a book set from an older book set I pulled off of Goodreads from like early 2024. What is this? And it started just giving me all this data. So it can pull data out into files. And when I test this information, I tend to find that it's correct. And like, these are the people that you read. You love Terry Pratchett. I do. Here's the different genres I read. The biggest thing I ever read was the King James Bible. That was long. Like, what kinds of classics have I read? It pulled that out. But my favorite thing I asked it was the end is like, give me some books that I might enjoy reading next. It's not a perfect list because 2 of the books are already in this list. I had already read Prayer for the Crown Shy, and I'd already read Golden the Genie twice for different book clubs. But other things I did wind up reading later, like Light from Uncommon Stars I read in the last year. So I'm like, okay, and some of these others do look interesting to me. So as a reading recommendation list, this looked great. I'm going to continue to play with the O3 model and see what it can do. I'm going to see when it starts to fall apart as we find, like, as you ask more and more questions of a model, it sometimes tends to fall apart. I haven't gotten there yet. But I'm really excited to see what this can do as I work with data sets where it's hard to pull out information, like questions and answers in SpringShare, like data that has a lot of text in it. Where I don't have to normalize it. I can just put this up. I don't have to make any changes. I just put it into here, and it seems to know what I want. So again, there are lots of issues with ChatGPT, lots of issues with how it works and how it got to be where it is today. But if I'm going to find a tool that works for something I want, at least I know that this is on the right track. Has anyone else used O3 or a similar model that has something that's similar to this? And again, one of the reasons this is slow is it likes to show me how it thinks, and it goes step by step by step by step. So it takes a few minutes for each question. Yep.
I haven't done this, but did you do from, these are the types of questions the students are asking, these are the types of things that we could put in a canned answer?
Not yet. So you're asking if I can come up with a canned answer. We did talk about that, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So from the questions they're asking, can you come up with canned answers? We haven't done that yet. We were just doing some initial tests. Anyone else have any things like, hey, here's something you really need to know about? I was just using this yesterday and you're not using it right now. Is everyone ready to go get a drink from Scott? All right, then I'm gonna let y'all go. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for listening. Go try out these toys. I'll post the PDFs with links very soon.